Kia ora, g'day, welcome back here with another question as part of this little Q&A series. And this one again is from Solly, a good supporter, kind supporter of the channel. And he's got here, is patrol procedures the equivalent of 2-2 SAS jungle phase of selection? Question mark. How does it compare? Question mark. And how does jungle training in Oz/NZSAS cycle compare to jungle training of 2-2 SAS selection? Thanks for your reply. Okay, so a bit in there. First part, is patrol procedures the equivalent of 2-2 SAS jungle phase of selection? As far as I'm aware, yes, it is. How does it compare? I can't, and to your last part, I couldn't give you an honest comparison in terms of how New Zealand, Australia compared to 2-2 SAS, which is what you've got in that last part. Like, how does it compare to jungle training of 2-2 SAS selection? I can only speak about NZ and Australia. Both, what I would say is that both NZ and Australia are extremely difficult, challenging courses, as you would expect, they're meant to be. You go from at different times of either being wet, cold, hungry, having the extremities blanking that numb and or frozen, that it's difficult to move your feet and toes constantly cold and frozen, especially when you're sitting static, and the requirements in and around fieldcraft being at a high level, movement discipline, noise discipline, weapon handling, weapon discipline, like being able to respond and react, especially if you're into contact stages and trainings of that particular course, your ability to maintain your patrol diary, to collect and gather the intelligence, to send that information back, to help with the bigger picture, etc., etc. Like, there's a lot that goes into that course. There's a lot of internal pressure and external. What I mean by that is internal from the individuals themselves. Like, you want to do well. I wanted to do well on that course. I wanted to perform well. I wanted to make sure that I could do all the things that we had been taught and had explained to us, and that I felt would be a part of and or a requirement to be able to serve in the unit. So everybody's got their own internal drive in and of themselves, but also you can build up, at least for me, I felt like I had a level of pressure that I was applying to myself because I wanted to do well, because I really wanted to serve in the unit, because I saw myself serving in the unit and felt that I was capable of doing the job. So there's that internal pressure. External pressure is obviously the directing staff. That's the your teammates, your peers that you're on course with. And so you want to not only perform well for you, but perform well for your mates that you will potentially be going on to the unit with and serving on operations with. And you want to serve and perform well for the directing staff who are watching basically your every move and determining. They're the ones that will have the determination or the deciding factor in terms of whether or not you progress and go to the unit because you're deemed suitable or not. So there's all of that. So at the opposite end of that, or maybe not the opposite end, but the other side, so where I said you can vary between that wet, cold, and hungry, those other things around weapon handling discipline, fieldcraft, movement discipline, etc., noise, all of that stuff is a constant. But the other end of the wet, cold is the hot, sweating, and dehydrated, and dealing with things like prickly heat. And then in the Australian environment in particular, where I found that, also then having to be aware of, Australia's got other things that want to bite, sting, scratch, and blink and potentially kill you if it's depending on the type of animal that it is. So the need to be mindful or cognizant of that, and all the other things are still the same: how you move, how you react, how you respond, etc. Those things are pretty constant in both. So hence why I mentioned, they're both very difficult and challenging courses. Obviously, New Zealand doesn't have the things that can bite and kill you, essentially. Like, we don't have the snakes and that sort of stuff, no crocodiles in and around here, which is a great blessing, right? But I think regardless of, even though it doesn't have those things, the way in which the training is conducted, the areas where they go and conduct the training, the level of instruction in which you receive from the experienced directing staff, etc., at least in my experience, set soldiers up from the NZ side to be able to go and serve and patrol in whatever the environment is. I mean, for me, it set me up well, I think, to go over to Australia, be in that environment over there with all the other slippery, slimy things that want to, I think, can bite you and or potentially kill you if it's depending on the type of snake and other things, or if you get in the wrong place. What else? So going into that hot environment, and then it helped when I went to East Timor and working in that hot environment as well, to then eventually having the opportunity and going working and serving in the Western Desert of Iraq, and then so on and so forth into urban environments in and out of Baghdad from the private sector, etc. So, I would say, though, like from my perspective, both NZ and Australia, those courses were very challenging, very hard, at least for me. But again, highly worth it. And then from your last part, how does jungle training Oz NZ cycle compare to jungle training VES at 2 SA selection? Yeah, unfortunately, I can't answer that. I've never had the privilege of doing the UK 2 SAS jungle phase or any of their selections. So, but I would imagine, and from what I've heard, it is difficult. Kiwis that I know of that have gone over, that have been successful past 2 selection, obviously part of that is the jungle phase. And likewise, Kiwis that have gone over and have failed the 2 selection, whether they got removed after the jungle phase or during or whatever, or maybe before or after. They've all said, those Kiwis that have gone and at least done it, participated in the 2 jungle phase, have all said it's a hard course, as you would expect. It is a highly regarded course across obviously UK, NZ, and Australia, in my opinion, based on what I've heard in relation to 2. And I can see why and have experienced why that is from the New Zealand and Australian perspective. So that's my take in response to it. Unfortunately, I can't give an honest answer in terms of how New Zealand and Australia's compare to UK's, but I would love to do it. I've heard some Big Phil paints a pretty grim description of it, and I know some other 2 lads that, oh man, the bloody jungle over there, and dealing with the heat and everything that wants to bite you and things crawling over you and that sort of stuff. Like, I would still love to do it. Like being out doing that stuff, like I've always shared, to me, that was where I thought, that's what I felt was being a soldier meant, having the discipline to be in those moments, the discipline to move slowly and deliberately, to be mindful of what you're doing, and just being under that constant stress, physical stress and load, and to a degree somewhat painful with that. But it's just, there's something about that, to me anyway, which I think is an important part of being a soldier in a combat role. So anyway, right or wrong, that's where my thoughts are. From what I understand, the 2 SAS jungle phase is an extremely hard course, as it should be. My experience, New Zealand and Australia are extremely hard as well, and as they should be. So yeah, hopefully that helps answer your question, bro, and appreciate your time and support once again. And I'll see you on the next one.